Today, I'm here with Ziad. By day, he's a business analyst. By night, he transforms into a finance and investing YouTuber, Ziad Invests. So, for most of us who are investors, we invest in companies that have high growth potential. So it's quite counterintuitive to invest in the world's most valuable company. So today I'm going to talk with Ziad about why he's investing in Apple and why we do it. Ziad, what should the audience know about you?
Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Ziad. Darren, thank you very much for this session. So I run a finance YouTube channel based in Malaysia. So I cover a lot about brokerage stuff, the basics to investing, a little bit about side hustle and stuff and taxation and etc. But the core of my YouTube channel is to help beginners to start investing, especially in the US market where all the gems are situated. Apple, Google, Tesla, Microsoft, all the good stuffs are over there. And my goal and my vision is to bring everyone, all the non-US residents, to start investing in the US market. So that's about it.
And returns in the US market are pretty attractive. If you just bought an S&P 500 ETF last year, boom, 27%. Past 30-year average, 10% annual growth. Ziad, what is your investing philosophy? Let's start with that.
Right, so that's a very good question. So a lot of people have been asking me, why did I start investing and what's my investing approach and stuff. So as a young guy, I wouldn't say that I have 10 or 20 years of experience, my aim is for retirement and blah, blah, blah. No, actually when I started investing, I actually wanted to challenge myself because I was considered a semi-good student. So because I study a lot, so I thought if I wanted to get rich, I can also study the stock market. So I can study the heck out of it and I can get rich, because if I can study well last time, for sure I can study the stock market, right? But of course, the stock market humbles us again and again. And then that's where I pick up and I learn and we evolve day by day. So my investing approach sort of softened and then we changed and then we look at the foreign markets. So right now, my investing approach is mainly growth stocks, so about 60+% in companies like Tesla, then a little bit saturated, about 10% in Apple and etc. And I typically don't chase into the high growth, super high growth type of companies, because at the same time, I try to remind myself that as long as there's growth and as long as I'm beating the market, which is the S&P 500 index, I should be fine. And then at the same time, I wouldn't want that extra nerve from the market or the volatility to affect me. So with the extra peace of mind and energy, I focus into my YouTube channel to help others to start investing. So I think this two-pronged effect helps me build my business on one side, and at another side, I am also building my wealth through investing. So that's my investing approach for now.
So for most of the viewers in this channel, it's pretty clear why we invest in Tesla. How does Apple fit into your entire portfolio?
Right, it's counterintuitive, right? Apple is maybe less of a growth stock compared to Tesla. Like there's not so much of an upside compared to Tesla. Like Tesla, we have gigafactories and etc. coming out, Cybertruck, you know. Apple is iPhone, Apple Watch, MacBooks and iPads. It's pretty predictable, right? So my thought process when it comes to having Apple, first of all, I love Apple devices. I have almost every devices we can even think about. Like I have 3 MacBooks. I used to own the Intel MacBook Air back in 2020. Then I bought the M1 MacBook Pro 2020. Then very recently I bought the 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. I have the AirPods, M1 iPad Pro, the Apple Watch, you know, all this great stuff. Like it helps me as well. I use it almost on a daily basis. Actually every day when I go to work, when I'm working, after work, I still use it. So the entire ecosystem is beautiful, it's magnificent, and it helps me in it's my daily driver, for the lack of a better word. So having Apple in my portfolio, first of all, as I mentioned, I understand it well because I am a user, a fanatic user, if you were to put it that way. Second of all, it acts as a backbone to my portfolio. So instead of having all into the mass kind of stocks like Tesla, you know, it's not so crazy right now, but still the volatility is there. So having Apple to sort of as a counterbalance weight towards the volatility of Tesla, I think it sort of helps me to build a more stable and more diversified portfolio. Not too diversified because technically I'm still young, 26, 27 years old. So I wanted growth, but not crazy growth like crypto growth, right? So that's that.
Apple's been a good backbone. Last year it gained 35%. Pretty decent. Beat the S&P 500 slightly. S&P 500 27%. Apple 35%. Tesla last year was closer to 50%. So again, there are ups and downs every year. What's your Apple entry and exit strategy?
So it's pretty straightforward, no rocket science and stuff. When I started investing, I think my first US stock is actually Apple, and I actually showed the entire process of how I buy it on my brokerage account, on my YouTube channel. So with Apple, when I first started investing, I wanted something stable but with growth that can beat the market. So I'm familiar with Apple, not so familiar about Google and Tesla and stuff, because I'm still pretty risk averse when I started investing about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. So Apple was sort of my beginner stocks to sort of let me taste the flavor of the US stock market. And over the time when I started to feel more confident, I moved over to higher growth stocks like Tesla. So having Apple, it's my high conviction stock, if not higher than Tesla, right? So having Apple, my entry strategy is pretty simple. I enter once, and then whenever I have extra cash, I will enter into Apple as well. But currently my main priority is Tesla. So whenever I feel that Tesla is overheated, then I will shift my money towards companies like Apple or Google. So to say, having Apple is not necessarily the first priority when it comes to DCA for me. Of course, like I mentioned, my priority is always Tesla for now, because of the strong catalyst, the upcoming catalyst that we have for the upcoming year and the years ahead, right? As opposed to Apple, it's a good company, but of course, I think the growth is sort of slowed down compared to Tesla. So for now, I will continue to dollar cost average into Apple, but after Tesla first.
Okay, so it sounds like we won't see a lot of addition to the Apple position. It may even organically decline as, let's say, Tesla rises.
Correct. So the second part of your question was about the exit strategy, right? So Apple, to me, like I've mentioned before, is the backbone of my portfolio. So I don't have the intention of selling it, but I might actually trim the position whenever I wanted to move towards capital preservation, maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, whenever I want to reinvest the money into a property, for example. But for now, the priority is to just let my money invest and let it grow as much as it can, or until when the fundamentals of the company no longer stays intact. Like, who knows, maybe there's another disruptor coming into the smartphone or the gadget industry, which is pretty improbable, but for now, it's still a good growth stock to have in the portfolio. So I don't have any particular exit strategy for right now.
You started buying Apple as a newbie investor, but now as you've learned more about investing, you're more comfortable with taking calculated risks. What still gives you conviction to hold on to Apple? Does it still make sense?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm still a fanatic of, or Apple fanboy, as many like to label. I still use their product, and I am super satisfied with all the products that I'm using. The Apple Watch, the MacBooks, like it's the daily driver, right? That's part of it, and that sort of built the brand loyalty myself towards this brand. So having said that, if I have the kind of brand loyalty, and I can see that, as Warren Buffett said, Tim Cook is the best manager in the world, and that the customer satisfaction rate for Apple is 100%. So when I see that people are growing towards Apple even more, especially current Apple users, and every day there are new Apple users, and when they are sort of sucked into the ecosystem, they grow into a loyal Apple users, and that's a very strong economic mode in my opinion. So it's technically really hard for an Apple user to shift out of the ecosystem, because you will leave your iCloud storage, you will leave all your subscription and stuff, which is why I think business strategy wise, Apple is still a very strong candidate to have, and that's what we have currently. But let's look forward in the future. We have Metaverse in the making. So if there's any company that wants to charge you a ticket fee for going into the Metaverse, I guess it's probably Apple or huge advertisement companies like Google and etc. So those are the candidates that I'm strongly holding, which is why I'm still highly convicted in Apple.
And I think privacy is going to be pretty important, especially as our life gets more entwined with technology, and Apple is a great brand when it comes to privacy. Apple stock hitting Apple is a company hitting $3 trillion in valuation. Cause for celebration or cause for concern?
That's a pretty legit question if you ask me. Like, I also ask myself that same question, but I think good companies, there will always be doubts. There will always be fear of it crashing because it's overvalued. It's trading at a premium. But I think same goes to good companies out there like Tesla and etc. It will always trade at a premium. It will always be overheated. No, some. You will never find a day where Tesla is trading at what, 6 times PE, 8 times PE. It's almost impossible to find great companies at that kind of value, and that's just lagging financial indicators per se. And if you look at forward cash flow or their balance sheet, they are still strong. They are still buying back their shares. They are still treating shareholders. So I don't know, 170 today might seem cheap in the future, considering they have already split 5 times. What makes you say they can't split for the 6th time, for the 7th time, so that the next generation, almost everyone can hold Apple? And for information, I think almost every employee or residents in the United States, they hold a retirement account, and most of them invest into the S&P 500 index or something equivalent. And that index holds Apple as a very huge component as well. So that said, almost everyone in the world, or at least in the US, is holding Apple. So to me, it's sort of too hard to fail. But of course, we'll see day by day how it goes. So far, so good. We still can grow.
Who should invest in Apple?
So, in my opinion, everyone, in fact, anyone can or should invest in Apple, because let's just start with beginners. Beginners, we are more I was once that we are more risk averse, we are more afraid of the volatility. So Apple provides that stability with growth as well, and also beating the S&P 500 index, which is the market. So if it can beat the market, it has strong fundamentals, and it is growing year over year in terms of every business segment, their hardware, their software, and it's still growing crazily, has a high profit margin, has a super strong and intact ecosystem, has a super nice brand and design and brand loyalty. I mean, beginners, if you are looking to dabble into the US market, myself, I would start with Apple. And that said, that does not mean Apple is only for beginners. For seasoned investors, I think it is also a good stock to have in a portfolio. Like I've mentioned earlier, it's a good backbone to have. When all things fall down, great companies with strong cash flow, they generate cash flow, they are the most resilient ones. As you can see during the pandemic, they came out stronger even with the supply chain issue.
As a follow-up, is there any group of people who shouldn't invest in Apple?
Well, I think if you are looking at Apple, although it's a good company, it's a strong company, still growing crazily year over year. But if you are going into Apple with the thought process of, I want it to be the next Tesla, or at least half of Tesla, I think that's the wrong mindset to begin with when it comes to Apple. And I think it applies to every single stock that we can think of today. Even other stocks, like, it's not so much of the whether the company can perform or not, but more of the mindset when it goes into Apple. And if you are expecting it to beat the S&P 500 index year over year, I think that is also not the right mindset to go into Apple. So if you're expecting it to outperform every year, then maybe that's not for you.
What are you most excited about on Apple's future?
So Apple's future, actually 3 things. First thing is probably, like I've mentioned earlier, most of you already know, the metaverse could or could not be the future of VR and AR and stuff. And secondly, the dark horse that a lot of people have been talking about, Apple Car. It may or may not come into fruition, but if it really did, it must be something that is able to compare, maybe not towards Tesla, but at least something that gives the customer a whole new world of experience, as they have did with the iPads, with the Apple Watch, with the iPhones. So this is a wild card to me. But if it's something along the line of a car, maybe not EV, maybe software, Apple CarPlay, I think it's still a pretty exciting stuff to me. And the third thing to me is probably something that not everyone talk about, which is digital bank. Like Apple Pay, it's available in a lot of countries, in Singapore. But unfortunately, it's not in Malaysia.
Not yet.
Not yet. Hopefully soon, Apple. Or should I say financial regulators. Anyways, having a digital bank, when you have your phones, when you have your gadgets integrated with your bank, your credit loans, your financial services, everything all tied to one, it's a super strong ecosystem that I think a lot of fintech is trying to achieve. But they don't have the reach and the current capability that Apple has. And with the strong balance sheet that Apple has, they have like what, 190 billion US dollars in cash. They can easily splurge or buy an entire country with the amount of cash. Long story short, they have the capability to invest in something crazy and start the R&D on a lot of things. I think that makes an exciting thing for Apple investors like me to look forward to.
So Apple's been working hard to try to reduce its cash flow because it's very sizable, so that it goes into more productive use or to return it to shareholders. So it is going down over time, but still very significant. And in today's regulatory environment for big tech, it is not as easy for them to do mergers and acquisitions because there's more scrutiny. And you see that with, I believe, Nvidia and ARM in the UK. So that is something to consider as well in that industry. We've been Apple users for many years. Do you have a specific Apple device or story that really made a big difference in your life?
Actually, all of them. I would say that the one that impacted me the most would be the MacBook Pro, because having the MacBook Pro, it's it's something that I strive to even afford when I started my YouTube channel, my side hustle. So just for the benefit of your Singaporean viewers, right? MacBook, they start at around 5,000 ringgit in Malaysia, which is crazy, about absurd when it comes to price. People usually tend to go to the 2,000, 3,000 ringgit range laptops. So to even afford that laptop, right, it was my first conviction that I'm gonna start my side hustle. I'm gonna work hard on this laptop and I'm gonna make it work for me. I'm gonna make it pay for me, pay my bills, and I actually made it. So having said that, even until today, having the most state-of-the-art MacBook Pro, it's also something that I tell myself I invest into income producing assets, and it's gonna stick with me for the years to come, and it will be my daily driver. It helps me to grow YouTube channel, and at the same time, by growing this YouTube channel, I can help more people in return. So that to me is a life-changing experience, not just for me, but for new investors that I've influenced or helped through my YouTube channel. So the MacBook Pro is probably the one that influenced me the most.
It's been a huge productivity tool for professionals.
Yes.
Like the current MacBook Pros, as Ziad mentioned, they cost 1 month's salary for some people. This is not for everyone.
Exactly.
I think for mainstream users, it will be the MacBook Airs, and this year we're expecting to see the M2 MacBook Airs. It's a more affordable price range. It's probably the best laptop for most people to use, because unless you are video editing or photo editing a lot or coding a lot, you wouldn't need a highest end MacBook Pro.
Even the base M1 MacBook Air, it's good enough for, I say, safe to say 90% of the people out there.
Agree. For me, the device that has the most impact in my life is a very small device. It's this Apple Watch. And here's why. We live in a world that is so connected. We actually look down at our phones more than 100 times a day. And what this device allows me to do is that pings me. It says, coming down now. Oh, okay. I just look up to my wrist and that's it. So it makes me look at my phone less, which I think is a blessing in today's world.
Yes, it
you,
is.
You hear these very fancy, sappy, emotional telco ads. Disconnect with your devices to connect with your loved ones. And
That's a good one though.
it's functional. Like, you won't browse social media on this device. You're not going to look at it for 3 hours. Basically, it's one of those rare times where the device serves you rather than you serving the device. Sometimes we feel like with the phone we could be on it through certain apps for hours at a time. With this, it does helps us get where we need to go, protects our health, our safety. If Z&I falls down, there's a fall detection. You can call emergency services immediately. When we go overseas, we can call any emergency numbers. You've got the LTE version. It's really useful as well. And it's actually increasingly popular for children as well. So
Sure.
like primary school kids, the parents will not get the child a phone necessarily. They may get them first this device, especially in China, because the kids can't basically do too much with it.
True.
And it's a good way to find my child, or just for the child to just make a simple phone call with the LTE version.
It sounds silly to a lot of people, right? Like all these features, it's probably overlooked, but when you actually need it, you will be at a peace of mind that it really helps you.
Yeah.
And that's the only one moment that you need it. and it's there for you.
Yeah.
Like if your watch is with your laptop bag or your car and it's stolen, that's the only time that you need it and it's there for you. So it's pretty crazy to think that all these small devices, they can change our lives so much.
Yeah, and it's not just like those life-saving moments, which it's almost like an insurance plan on your wrist, but even very mundane things. A month ago, I was filming a video and I left my iPhone in the Tesla wireless charger in front. I left the car, I forgot my phone. Because I had my watch, I could call my phone
Oh,
and call my friend to, sorry, I left my phone here, can you turn back?
wow.
Like, these are very small, mundane things, but wow, it makes a big difference to me. Like, that's quite substantial. And I think this ties back to the philosophy at Apple, like why I so invest in it, is that Steve Jobs has said that Apple is the intersection between the liberal arts and also technology. They famously say, right, you know, back then when they had the Macs with the transparent,
Yeah.
the colorful ones you can see
The casing,
inside.
yeah.
They always say, we make the inside beautiful even if no one can see it because we know what's inside and we want to be proud of what we produce.
Mm.
Which is why you'll see in the video that I had with Ziad, and I put a link down in the description below on why I believe that Apple probably wouldn't launch an Apple car because they want to work hard to delight people. They don't want to launch a okay product in a category like this is like a hygiene product. Oh, because everyone has a car, therefore I have a car just to plug in your devices.
Exactly.
I don't think Apple does that. Like Apple doesn't launch an Apple like the TV device for many years. We were asking, why don't you make a TV? Because like, what problem are we solving with the TV?
Exactly.
Hmm.
And I think someone actually asked Steve Jobs back in the days, the late Steve Jobs, during his presentation, why are you creating products that are so expensive? The multiples of the current smartphones or the current BlackBerry phones and etc. Who's gonna afford that kind of product? And I think Steve Jobs' reply really got me thinking. He said that we are creating products that can change life, and we are not gonna cut the cost. We're not gonna compensate just to make extra profits and win the market share. That's not our goal. Our goal is to change life. And like for myself, typing on my MacBook Pro, scripting and creating my videos on my MacBook, when I'm tired, I jump on my sofa, I type on my iPad with the Magic Keyboard, and before bed, sometimes when I want to go through my script, I just check on my iPhone. It's so seamless, and when I want to transfer files between my iPhone, between my iPad, between my MacBooks, it's just a touch with the AirDrop. So things are so seamless in that ecosystem that it's a little bit hard to appreciate if you haven't tried it yourself. And if you have experienced it, you will know what I'm talking about.
Once you've done Control-C from your Mac and paste on your iPhone, you will not go back.
Exactly.
Cannot
go back.
I know it sounds like such a first world problem. Ziad, thank you for sharing your perspectives on Apple, the world's most valuable company. Many people wonder if it's still a growth stock. Many different perspectives here as well. If you found this video helpful and inspiring, click the like button. If you want to see more interviews like this, hit subscribe. I'll put a link down to Ziad's YouTube channel below where you learn a lot of great things. What's in store for your channel that you want to share with the audience here?
So I mainly covered how to start investing in the US market, mainly how to find it in the most cost-effective way, how to use some fintechs and stuff. So mainly investing, brokerage stuff. It's pretty basic, but I think it's the most fundamental thing that every investor needs to at least touch on. And I think if you are saying you want to invest in Apple, in Tesla, but in the first place you don't even know which is the best brokerage account to choose for, my channel is where you should go.
So everyone, take care.
Take care.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.